It's Strongbow, and I am off the grid. Today, I wanted to talk to you guys about one of the challenges right now for me living off the grid is I don't have a refrigerator. And lucky for me, it is winter in Alaska. So some of the meats and things like that I have are out in a cooler and staying preserved that way. Although it's been freezing and thawing a bunch, that is challenging too. So, with that in mind, keeping eggs. I can't put eggs outside, they'll freeze solid and they'll crack and they'll rupture, and then trying to get the shells off and use them is just terrible. But without a refrigerator, how do you keep eggs? And this is a trick I saw many years ago from some guys on sailboats who were traveling around in the ocean and doing their long journeys, and they would rub oil on the eggs to seal the shells. And the shells are semi-permeable membranes. If you look at one under a microscope, it looks like a basket weave. It just looks like a big mesh together, and the air passes in and out of the egg. So we want to avoid that. That's what causes spoilage. We want to seal these eggs up. And something that works really well is I bought Kirkland coconut oil. I like to use the coconut oil. And this stuff seals the eggs up, and you're going to be surprised at how long these last. So what I do is I just get a little wad of coconut oil in my hand, smear it around and melt it so it gets kind of melted. And then you grab the egg and you just roll the egg around in your hand till it's all shiny and full of the coconut oil. That seals them up. So you do that with all the eggs. These are Kirkland brand store-bought organic eggs. So I'll do the entire tray, which I've already done this one, and then close it up, and I'll just put it on the ground or on the floor of the trailer because it gets cooler down on the floor. All right, and then every few days, make sure that it's closed. I'll flip them upside down, which allows the yolk to go on the other side of the shell, so it's not just sitting in one spot. So I turn the eggs every few days. Now here's the kicker. How long do you think these eggs have lasted? Any guesses? So I'm saying that when I first did this, I thought they were going to last, a few days. You hear all these things about refrigerated eggs from the store. They'll go bad in a few days. I've had these eggs, and I've had other eggs, 45 days. No kidding. And sometimes I forget to turn them, and they still seem to be okay. So 45 days so far. Crack the egg open, doesn't smell, the yolk's nice and clean looking, the white of the egg whites, totally clear, no problem. 45 days with store-bought eggs with coconut oil rubbed on them, and turn them as much as you can, flip them over. So one of the other things is meat, and with the meat, two things. Wintertime, obviously, we can store it outside somewhat, but there's wild animals. There's also domestic dogs and things around too. So you got to keep it protected. The other thing I do is pressure canning. So summertime we catch fish, salmon primarily. This is a jar of canned salmon, and I pressure can it. These jars, there's tons of recipes out there online on how to can fish and meat. I won't go into all of the process of it. We could do that another time. These are not smoked or anything. I just fillet the salmon out, cut it into strips that will fit in the jars, pack it in the jars, then I'll put, this one has salt and a bay leaf thrown in there. Sometimes I'll take a chunk of jalapeno and put a chunk of jalapeno on the top with a teaspoon of salt in each jar. Pressure can them up for 100 minutes at 10 psi. Good to go. The other thing I did was I went out and I bought a bunch of cheap cuts of beef. I don't know, maybe this is about 2 months ago. And the beef prices and the meat prices here in Alaska were getting pretty outrageous. They still are. So I just cut up a bunch of chunks of beef, and I grabbed canning jars, stuffed it into canning jars, didn't do anything to it, and pressure canned it. Same thing, 100 minutes, between 10 and 15 psi. My pressure cooker kind of wobbles a little bit. And you'll see the fat layer that settled in at the top here. And it should last a couple of years. So without refrigeration, you can freeze this, it's no problem, because there's enough gap in the top to allow for any expansion, plus there's salt in there, and the fat, it usually won't freeze solid unless it's super, super cold out there. Never had any issues with it. So this is a case of beef and mix of salmon, of fish, from this past year, or 2 years ago actually, and it'll be great. Pull it out, mix it up with some mayo or something like that for a salmon spread, salmon salad. The beef stuff, you could just empty this into a bowl of or a pot of rice that you make with some veggies and stuff. Comes out so tender. So you can use cheap cuts of beef, and the pressure cooker tenderizes the bejesus out of it, so it comes out like roast beef, just beautiful stuff. Did that with bear one time too. Makes bear. I mean, it's amazing. Throw a little salt in there, some onions, and pressure can it up. Good deal. So, for now, these are the challenges that I've overcome without having a refrigerator thus far. And there are little ones here and there that I'm still working on. So, with that being said, till next time, thanks.